All right, good afternoon, folks. Those of you that are here, thank you very much for coming to the last session, last Tech Talk for today. We'll introduce ourselves in a few minutes here, but I just wanted to say that even though this is right up to the reception that's happening, or the Journey Through the World event that's happening, we will try to make sure that there are no barriers to you getting out there. But as we go through the presentation, if you do have questions, we would like to limit it to maybe just one or two for the slides, but we are more than happy to stay back and talk to you or answer any additional questions you may have. With that, this is the Tech Talk on Windstream, which is the company that we're with. Our corporate challenges in gaining traction, adopting service virtualization. So I'm sure you guys have seen this slide a gazillion times, so I'm not going to focus on that one. Just a quick blurb on Windstream, who we are. We are a communications company, and we primarily provide broadband, high-speed broadband, internet, phone service, digital TV packages to residential customers, enterprise services, a lot of data circuits, that kind of stuff, and then managed security networks, etc. All right, we'll start with
Speaker's bio. My name is Dirk Fox. I've been with Windstream for 13 years now. I actually started out as a development manager in the OSS stack in software house. Went to work for one of the customers of the company and eventually was acquired by Windstream through several acquisitions. I've been here for 13 years. I run support for the OSS stacks in the company. And I have a development team which is responsible for integrations to those major OSS systems. You'll see I and Venkat both are newbies to service virtualization.
So next up, I am Venkat Narayan Swamy. I'm the Director of Solution Architecture at Windstream. Like Dirk, I'm also a newbie to service virtualization, but I've been in the software development life cycle. It's probably the best way to say that. I've spent over 23 years at Windstream, started as a developer, and today I run a team of solution architects. And our primary, my role primarily is to mentor and help my team develop solution architecture and design for our software application portfolio.
So we're going to take you a little bit through the journey that we've been through over the last 2 years in acquiring and getting our hands on and standing up service virtualization. The work actually began early in the second half of 2015, where we engaged CA and started negotiations with them to see if they could help us in our wish to get some things done as far as virtualizing services, help us shift left and do good things faster with their tools. At the beginning of 2016, we discussed and entered into a framework understanding for a proof of concept with CA. We were very specific in our use cases that we wanted to see addressed, and so that led to these discussions, and we got them kicked off at the beginning of 2016. Later in 2016, our internals organization was able to go ahead and get contracts signed in place, projects funded, and we were able to go ahead and get everything finalized. It took us until Q3 of 2016 and later in the year to actually start the project off. But as soon as we kicked it off, we had some internal reorganization, restructuring of the IT department. Where Venkat and I used to be peers, we now found ourselves on different teams. He now reports to an architecture vice president. I'm on the more development side of it. And so we now have to have a symbiotic relationship where we work together. I own the support for service virtualization. He owns the budget and the project and the delivery of the project, I guess I should say. So it wasn't until the beginning of this year that we actually got some traction on service virtualization and started setting it up and using it. And we'll take you on our road through that journey here in the next slides. So our vision as we got started, we were very definite in how we wanted to approach it. We laid these plans out and discussed that with CA and engaged professional services and got their help to help us get started down this path of our vision. We wanted to start out with a couple of simple virtualized services, get those so that we could show those to other teams and eventually get their buy-in. We wanted to follow that up with some more complex virtual services, which would take involvement of more than just singular teams. It would take cross-functional teams and stuff like that. For value proposition, we wanted to be able to take what we had already delivered in those first two steps and take those to the IT department as a whole and try and show those to the other IT teams and let them know what we got our hands on and how it could benefit them. Which brings us to the next group up. So we wanted to evangelize virtualized services and get those out to those other groups with the expectations that we would probably wind up doing one group at a time. And then we did the 7 use cases that CA basically outlines. If you can tell the background of that slide there is actually CA's slide of their 7 test cases.
So here we were, all set, and we thought we had everything laid out in a perfect fashion. We were going to do this methodically. We were going to knock this thing out of the park. We're going to get people excited, and we got past our first curveball, right? First things first, just when we were getting ready to start, we got split up. He has resources, that means I'm dependent on him for the success of the project. I have the budget, which means he's dependent on me to make sure that we are managing the resources properly. That includes the CA professional services architect that was helping us, and also see some CA folks in the back that were part of the overall team to help us be successful. So why are we talking about challenges, right? Well, this is the meat of our discussion and what we wanted to present to you guys. Again, this is not a talk about, hey, this is how you do service virtualization. Hey, here are the great things that you can do with service virtualization. That's established. CA has been great about that. The tool's great. We didn't have any qualms about all of that. It's more of the philosophical issue of how do we get there? How do you, the classic proverb, right? How do you take the horse, lead it to the water, but make it drink? Maybe pour Kool-Aid into it, I don't know. It hasn't been tried yet, but we haven't tried that either. So let's start with some of the challenges that we've had. Again, want to walk through each of these individually, and if you guys have any questions, we're more than happy to answer that. So first things first, adoption. It's a primary challenge that we've faced, because without adoption, without people being excited about that, you cannot really get the traction that you need. You cannot be successful making this a mainstream part of the application portfolio. So one of the key things that we ran into was the notion of what service virtualization is. For most people, service virtualization came across as a testing entity. They thought that we were adding another step into their development methodology to do testing, and that didn't really give us the tools that we needed or the traction that we needed. So for us, trying to get them to think about other benefits from service virtualization impacted our ability to evangelize and broaden the service virtualization concept inside the application portfolio. The second thing is consumption. And you will see in subsequent slides some of the things that we actually have done. We wanted to make sure that you guys get the understanding of what we have done and how it correlates to the challenges. The next thing is consumption. So we built some services, but we were able to extract the value from those services for that specific use case we built it. But our goal was to be able to take that, like we said, simple service, complex service, right? We wanted to take that simple service, extend it, and make it more of a complex service that will provide additional benefits. Again, same thing. We weren't able to get the teams to think beyond what that initial use case was and extend it. And this will actually be borne out by that last bullet point there, but I'll get to it in a second. So what that impacted was our ability to actually enhance the value of virtual services and service virtualization. So we said, okay, well, you can do X, Y, Z, but we want it to be X squared, Y squared, Z squared, and that's where the value actually comes in. And that was one of the key things that we weren't able to get there. Resource constraints. Classic case, split responsibilities. So that actually doubled our efforts, because now instead of one person being able to manage everything, it had to be a joint effort. So both of us were spending time on meetings, both of us were spending time with the developers, both of us were spending time with CA resources. So it was a cascading effect of what the resource constraints happened. And with Dirk's team, we actually had some additional unintended consequences or unexpected events happen. He had a team of 3 people that was decimated down to 1. One person had to leave the company, one person had other issues that caused problems. So bottom line, where we were expecting and our vision was predicated on having all these resources and the CA's help, we were down to a very small subset, one subject matter expert in service virtualization. And so combined that with the adoption and the consumption issues, now we had a challenge. We couldn't really push virtual services out as fast as we wanted to push that out. And then the last thing is the subject matter expert availability. So when you look at adoption and the notion that service virtualization is more of a testing entity as opposed to assisting with the development methodology or the shift left philosophy, now groups that needed to pony up resources that were knowledgeable about the application space. So you got 2 things. You have the service virtualization experts that could build the virtual services, but you need the application experts to be able to say, okay, this is what my application does. This person is not going to know this person is not going to know this. So it's that symbiotic relationship that we were trying to get in there and also cross-pollinate, right? So maybe we could get this person trained in some aspects of service virtualization, have them do the simple services, while we start gaining knowledge about the applications and start building the complex services. So that was kind of our vision and our goal. But again, without having that availability of the SMEs and the application groups ready to pony that up, that was another issue that we ran into where we couldn't expand on it. The last thing that we wanted to attempt was the end-to-end life cycle of the CA products that we purchased. We had ARD, we had SV, we had TDM and PM. And what we wanted to do was take that and say, look guys, we are showcasing a small portion. But what we really want to do is get to that end-to-end life cycle so that we can use the entire complement of tools and we can get to that higher level of benefits that we need to get from all of these tools and not just this one portion.
So what benefits were realized from service virtualization? It did enable us to accomplish some of our parallel development goals. We were able to do some, or prove that we can shift left. We helped eliminate some hardware needs and environment needs by standing up virtualized services. We didn't require the flow through that was required before on prior projects. Also, and I'll talk about this a little bit later on the next slide. Dev test environment monitoring we used it for, which is some little bit of outside the box thinking that our Rockstar SV guy came up with, and that kind of leads into innovation. We'll tell you about some other things he was able to use this for. So, go ahead. So parallel development, like I said, we were able to reduce the development time for a couple of projects and improve that out. We improved code quality because we were, like most of you probably, failing earlier and being able to have more available time to go back and do those bug fixes, and we created an atmosphere where quality code was being stressed and being practiced. Eliminating the environment, the virtual services that I talked about, eliminating the need for flow-through environments. And when I say flow-through environments, I'm talking about, what, 30,
like an application A, application B, application C, and they all interact. They have connectivity through web services, but you cannot operate, you cannot test your functionality without all of them being in the ecosystem.
But we as a department have probably 30 to 40 major systems which make up an environment, and probably anywhere between 100, 200 integration points between the systems. So we have, in a non-production environment, all the way from dev up to UAT or QA, 12 flow-through environments. So the expense of having to go stand up those environments, I think we spent something like $1.5 million to stand up the last one. So this will help us eliminate that kind of cost, and that's one of the things that gets the executives kind of excited when you can show that kind of savings. One of the other things that talking about the eliminating environment and hardware and software needs, as we said in our initial slide about our company, we're a telecommunications company. And so in our non-production environment, we have in our, let's start with our production environments, we have thousands and thousands of network elements which are bringing customers up and with services and voice and data, routing customers. Each one of these network elements turns out to be nothing more than a CPU with an attached database for routing tables or port mappings and that type of stuff. So we were able to take service virtualization and say, hey, let's virtualize these guys. We don't have to go through the expense of having all these additional layers of network elements in a lab or a non-production environment. And that was one of our biggest hitters. Testing, we did accomplish the shift left. I've said that a couple of times. And we were able to establish minimal data test sets that we do when we are going through our system and UAT testing.
So the next piece is actually the app test portion of SV. We had what we showed you earlier was the dev test side of it. We were able to get benefit out of the app test portion as well. What I'm going to show you are a few things that what we would call our innovation concept, and that's why you see those little light bulbs. These were things that were thought of on the fly. One of Dirk's resources, or I should say the remaining resource, is a crackerjack that thinks outside the box and can apply some of these new concepts. So when he heard about issues, then he would go and talk to the CA, professional services architect, and between the two of them, they were able to come up with a few things that were innovative and not necessarily part of the original program. So one of them was the ability to actually take 24,000 billable accounts and push it to a test environment as part of one of our migration process for a mock test. They needed to push 24,000 accounts. They were not sure how to do that. It was one of those things that cropped up and they needed fresh data. So if somebody had to write the actual code or script to push that data, that would have taken them about 60 hours. And using AppTest, Dirk's resource and the CA resource were able to build this and in just 4 hours. So right there is one example of where innovation came into the picture. So it helped us solve a showstopper issue. If we hadn't been able to do this, that project would have been behind by about 2 weeks and would have caused a delay in the overall migration program. So the next thing is performance test. We had just acquired a company, and we were going to use or sell one of their products. And in order to do that, we had to push transactions through to their system. Now, again, we were not sure about the latency, the throughput, and there's no way to sit and test that in a flow-through environment and make sure that you're pushing the right amount of data as well as the right data, right? So again, same thing here. We used service virtualization. I think the only additional innovation there was it was actually a Swagger definition, and the Swagger definition was not supported in the version that we were in, but the CA architect was able to go back to the CA team, get them to pony up the code that would help take that Swagger definition in and create the virtual service. And I believe yesterday, or day before yesterday, we heard that that's built into the 10.x version. So in a way, we kind of helped you guys get that pushed into production early. So technically, we did service virtualization testing of service virtualization product. So again, 9,000 transactions. We ran the addresses through, created the app test script pretty easily. As part of the migration project, again, another gem that they discovered late in the game, they had about 3,000 in-flight orders. So this is during the migration process, all the orders that are in flight or in process also need to be moved over so that the customers can be serviced and billed. What they found out is that as they move the in-flight orders, as part of the original production process, it goes through and collects data from another billing gateway through a web service. That was not built in to the migration process. To write the code, to actually make it a part of the migration code and execute that would have taken them about 2 weeks. Again, same thing, showstopper issue, would have pushed the deadline out, would have caused other unintended issues. So these two guys got together in 6 hours. They were able to write the virtual service that would go out and pull the data from the billing gateway using the WSDL and the web service, ran it through, and were able to save the day and help other teams. The next 4, I'm going to kind of talk in tandem. So let me build this out here. One of the key things that we were able to achieve with app test was our dev test monitoring. So we have servers of all kinds, and big corporation, everything from mainframe to the latest and greatest technology. So we have servers of all kinds. One of the key things that we try to do with our testing environments is make sure that when the business users are out there testing, the systems are up and running, and they are not the ones that are finding issues with the down system. So in a traditional method, we would write scripts or manually log into those servers. In some cases, there are multiple servers because we're also trying to test our load balancing and being as close to production as possible. So the developers would have to go out there and they would have to run these scripts or execute the tests manually. Same thing, ran through created those same scripts, and we created one script which was extensible and could be extended to run on all the other server types. So we just had to feed it variables or variable data like a spreadsheet or a script file, etc. That was a big help, and another beauty of being able to get the benefits from the service virtualization or the app test portion of it.
These were our initial vision that we talked about earlier. Roll out a couple of simple virtual services as proof to the community. We were able to achieve that result. Next one was the complex virtual services. Our scope kind of changed midstream as it tends to do from time to time. And so we did not attempt to do that yet. And so that's kind of, we're taking an internal rain check on that one. Value proposition, we've demonstrated the use and the value of virtual services in dev tests, but we haven't got complete buy-in from the internal IT department. A lot of that has to do with the silos that each of the teams find themselves in, and I think there's not been proper focus set on trying to integrate these tools into their development life cycle. Next group up, we did review potential use cases with some other people. We got some buy-in to some, get people registered for some online training. Don't know if they ever completed that though. And we were able to ramp up another group, or are in the process of doing that. And use case expansion. Of the 7 different use cases that CA has in their slide that we talked about earlier, we're able to complete 3 of those. We thought we would only get to 1 of them, but we were actually able to realize 3 of those use cases.
So we talked to you guys about the challenges that we have. We talked to you about some of the limited benefits that we've been able to achieve. Again, want to reiterate the fact that it's not necessarily an issue with the tool. It's not an issue with CA. It's not an issue with the resources per se, but it's a combination of internal constraints is probably the best way to say it. So how do we move forward? And that's kind of what we want to talk about. So how do we entice usage? How do we make people realize that this is not just for testing? It can be used for parallel development. It can be used for other things that benefit us as a company and as a software organization. How do we transform the development philosophy? Well, I mean, okay, shift left is a buzzword. Everybody likes buzzwords, but is that enough? I mean, are there other things that we need to talk about or bring to the table? Larger value proposition. How do we enhance and make people understand that, hey, we cut down 60 hours of development down to 6 or down to 4. That 1:15 ratio is achievable across the board. One of the things that we probably didn't talk about in the the dev test portal, the reduction in development time. We were able to actually achieve 2 weeks of development time or gain 2 weeks of development time because of the parallel development. And that's what helped us move into those negative test scenarios, being able to look at timeouts, being able to look at, system is down without actually having to bring the system down type of stuff. So those are the things that, how do we get those larger value proposition in there? We talked about some of the challenges we've had, but what are the challenges you guys have experienced that we may not have told you about or projected today? How did you overcome those? Or are there things that we should be looking out for that even if we solve all the problems that we've talked about today, are there other things that are hidden that we don't know about that we should think about? And lastly, kudos to Summer, who's in the back there. She is very instrumental in presenting to us the Virtualization Acceleration Program. But we haven't been able to get that implemented because of internal constraints and trying to get our internal leaders to think about that as a tool to get the traction that we need. Is that the answer? I mean, do we need to move into dedicated, focused learning options like that and make sure that people understand that that's the only way we will get people trained enough to be able to utilize this? So how do we get to the finish line? This is what we want to do. This conversation and this talk is primarily to get us from those questions to the right side where we have all of our benefits that we want to achieve.